yesterday. So, we're continuing this three-part little kind of workshop on mindfulness and anger, and overcoming anger with loving kindness. So, yesterday we kind of got some experience and got some brief experience of each three, meditating on loving kindness, or meditating on mindfulness, which is basic placement meditation, and then analyzing anger, beginning to analyze anger a little bit, and then meditating on loving kindness a little bit. So we'll continue with all three today in more depth in all three. So let's begin by doing a short meditation on mindfulness, or placement meditation. So I'll just review some of the main points we went through yesterday and then add a little bit. So we'll meditate, maybe we'll do two parts of the meditation on mindfulness this morning. First on the breath, and then just on the mind, looking at the mind itself. So first, get comfortable in your meditation posture. So like I said yesterday, to any meditation session, there's basically four parts. The first is the posture, how we sit, how we're sitting, so that the body's comfortable and we don't have to pay attention to our body during the meditation session, but rather we can just let our body rest comfortably for the duration of the session and focus on our mind. Okay? So the first thing is the posture, and then the motivation, thinking about why we're doing this activity, and making sure we have a positive reason, a good reason for engaging, and then the main part of the meditation session, and then the dedication at the end. Okay? So first, the posture. So if you're sitting on the floor, then sit cross-legged. One of the three, either full lotus, half lotus, or just regular cross-legged posture. If you're sitting in a chair, just make sure you're sitting up straight, your back is supported. And you can breathe freely, so you don't want to be slouching or leaning from one side to the other, right? So the first thing is the legs crossed and sitting stable on a cushion. And then the torso upright, right? But not stiff, but also not slouching. Just kind of straight and balanced. And let your shoulders hang evenly from your spine and collar. And then the hands in the lap, the right hand on top of left, and the tips of the thumbs touching. And then rest the hands on your lap in front of your navel, whatever distance is comfortable. And then the head slightly tucked, so tuck the chin just a little bit, not like this, but just, so you want to direct a line straight from the crown of the head to the base of the spine, a straight line. So like the vertebrae are like stacked coins, or it's as if there's a thread, a hook, a hook to the top of our head from which we're hanging straight down. So it helps to tuck the chin in a little bit, extend the back of the neck just slightly. And then the eyes, let them turn your gaze down towards the floor at about a 45-degree angle. And relax the eyelids so that they're half closed, but that they're half open so that we let some light in and we don't get sleepy or lethargic. And then the focus of your gaze, don't look and focus at any point that you see in front of you, but rather pull the focus of your gaze back between you and the floor or whatever's in front of you, so that your eyes just kind of, the vision just is resting unfocused in space. And then the mouth and the lips and teeth just rest in a natural, whatever's natural for you, natural position. And then the tip of the tongue, it's recommended to just touch gently against the roof of your mouth, just behind your front teeth, to help keep your mouth from drying, prevent your mouth from drying out. And then briefly, mentally scan through your body, beginning at the top of your body, the crown of your head, and just gently bring your attention to each part of the body, especially the muscles and tissues, tendons, to check that there's any discomfort or tightness. So as you exhale, imagine any tightness, any stress, discomfort, or heaviness flowing out in the form of like black soot or black smoke, and dissolving into the ground. And then as you inhale, imagine a very rejuvenating white light energy coming in with the energy of the air and coming to that part of your body invigorating each part of your body, and as you stand down. So first bring your attention to the crown of your head, then the forehead, back of the head. And then all the muscles of the face, and the eyes, the cheeks, the jaw. And the front of the neck, the back of the neck. Especially where the back of the neck meets our collar. And our shoulders in the back. And the front of the collar, the shoulders, upper part of the chest. And then in the back, relax the shoulder blades, especially the muscles along the spine, the back, and your upper back and middle back. And then bring your attention to your solar plexus, your rib cage, your abdomen. And relax the lower part of your back, especially just above the hips. And then your hips and pelvis on down to the soles of your feet. So then with your body relaxed in a comfortable meditation posture, now turn your attention to, we'll turn our attention to our motivation. So thinking about what is our reason for coming here this morning, for engaging in a few hours of meditation instruction. So one way to think is that basically we want happiness, we want to be free from problems, suffering, unpleasant experiences. We want to be a good person, want to be a better person, and free ourselves from faults in our character and our behavior. And also we might feel we want to be greater benefit, be a force of goodness in the world, and not harm others. So all of these are excellent reasons. And you think of whatever reasons you have for yourself, whatever good reasons, positive reasons you have for yourself. In the short term, in the midterm, in the long term, for yourself, and also that involve the well-being, being concerned for the well-being of others in the world. Up to your longest term, highest kind of aspirations. So think how, kind of generate the intention that whatever I do now, may it contribute towards achieving all of these positive aspirations for myself and others. So try to generate a strong positive motivation. So then the main part of the meditation session, as I said yesterday, there's two basic kinds of meditation: placement meditation and analytical meditation, or shamatha and vipassana. So now first we'll practice shamatha, or placement meditation, where we just choose an object to focus our attention on, and then simply try to keep our attention there on that object without wandering or wavering off. But then when our attention does wander off to think about other things, pay attention to other things, the past or the future, or discursive thought, we want to notice that as quickly as possible and let go of the object of our distracted mind, and then bring our focus back to our chosen object of meditation. Right? So we'll focus on the breath again, just today, just like we did yesterday. So breathe naturally, and just observe, direct the attention of your mind, the focus of your mind, towards your breath. And just try to be fully aware of every aspect, every moment, every split second of the sensations of breathing. But then so we'll watch our breath for about 10 minutes again. But I'll just add one element. Well, actually, I'll just label two elements we were using yesterday and then add one more. So as we're watching our breath, the main part of our mind, about 70, or say about 80% of our mind, we're just keeping directed. We want to have a continuity of awareness of the breath. So we want to maintain continual awareness of the breath. So about 80% of our mind, we're just focusing on the breath. So this is actually called mindfulness. When you speak about mindfulness in a more technical way, it's this aspect of keeping 80% of our mind directed at the object of meditation. So the breath in this case. But then, as I said before, with about 20% of our mind, we're trying to observe ourselves. So it's self-reflective. We're observing our own mind meditating, our own person, our own mind meditating. So that's called vigilance, this introspective element. It's kind of a meta awareness. Instead of just being aware of the object of meditation, we're aware of the whole process of our self-meditating and kind of monitoring our progress. So that's called vigilance, right? So 80% of our mind is directed at the object, it's called mindfulness. And then 20% of our mind has this meta-awareness where we're watching the whole process and making sure we're staying on track. So it's that aspect called vigilance, which is its responsibility is to notice when our attention is wandering off the object of meditation, and then let go of the distraction and bring our awareness back. Right, so there's these two elements, mindfulness and vigilance. And then we can add, if you like, add in one more element to this breathing meditation, which is counting the breaths. Right? So here we don't count every breath, rather we count as many breaths as we can watch undistractedly. Right? So undistractedly means we begin observing our breath, and then we have one exhalation. We observe one exhalation, one inhalation. So we count that as one breath, one cycle of breath. And then, without the mind wandering, we watch another round of inhalation, exhalation, and then mentally we count 2 and 3, and then we might find ourselves thinking about something else, thinking about the future or the past or something outside of us. So we recognize our mind's distracted, let go, bring our attention back, and again start counting at 1. As we undistractedly watch 1 inhalation, exhalation, 1 round of breath. We count 1, and then 2 and 3. So that way we kind of see how high we can get. If you get up to 10, then reverse the count and count in reverse back down to 1. Okay? So let's try to meditate like that for about 10 minutes. Simply watching the breath. relax your attention. It's been 10 minutes now. Maybe watching the game. So, just to say a few more words about mindfulness meditation, and then if there's any questions, we can try to answer some questions about mindfulness meditation or generally building up a practice, doing mindfulness meditation. So, the basic technique is quite simple. Just the posture and motivation, and then during the actual session, deciding what you're going to focus on. Right, it's important to decide right at the beginning of the meditation what's going to be the object of your meditation, what's going to be the focus of your attention. Because if we're not clear about that, then it's just it's hard to get any stability in the mind. Generally, when we're practicing placement meditation like this, we're trying to cultivate, in terms of what our mind is doing, we're trying to cultivate two aspects, which I described earlier, right? Mindfulness, which is this continual stream of awareness of one object, an unbroken continuum of awareness of one object, in this case the breath. So that's where we put about 80% of our mental energy into trying to maintain this unbroken stream of awareness of one object. And then about the other 20% of our mental energy we put into this meta-awareness, which is called vigilance or introspection, where we're looking at our own progress, our own activity of meditating. And the job of that is that part of the mind, vigilance, is to it's kind of to protect, on the one hand, protect ourselves, or protect our attention from wandering off to other objects, to something that's not the object of meditation, like thoughts of the past or thoughts about the future, memories or plans for the future, or being, paying attention primarily to other kind of other emotions or other perception of other things, other than what we're trying to focus our attention on. Right. So on one hand, the vigilance is trying to kind of be a sentry, be a guard, like protecting this the stream of awareness of the object of meditation from being disturbed. And on the other hand, it's responsible when there is an intruder, like when distractions kind of breaks into the progress of a meditation, and we find ourselves thinking about something else. It's the responsibility of this vigilance to notice that as quickly as possible. And then we can even be aware of what is it we're distracted to, and label it. Like, are we distracted to thoughts about the future, or distracted to some object of anger in the past, or some object of attachment, or sensations in our body, or or imaginations, kind of we're imagining different visual experiences or whatever. So if we label the different kind of distractions we have, we might see a pattern in them and notice that, I'm continually, when I'm trying to meditate, I'm always thinking about, like my schedule in the future, or thinking about a particular person. So if we see a pattern of distraction, then it can help us address that and reduce distraction. So so this is two main, in terms of activity of the mind, this is two main elements: mindfulness, trying to maintain an unbroken stream of awareness of the object of meditation, and then vigilance, kind of, or meta-awareness, monitoring the progress of our meditation and noticing, protecting the mind from wandering off, and also noticing when our mind does wander off and letting go of that, right? But in terms of like, sort of the quality of mind that we're trying to develop, we can also describe it in two different ways. On the one hand, we're trying to develop stability, mental stability, where our mind becomes very still, and in that it's not wavering. Like you can think of a mind like a pool of water, right? So when there's a strong wind blowing, the surface of the water is quite stirred up. There's a lot of waves and ripples, and it's choppy, right? So it doesn't, and in that case, the water's natural ability to reflect light, it's not, that property you can't see there. It doesn't easily reflect light because it's all stirred up, so you can't see a reflection of anything clear in it. Rather, you see kind of sparkly. If there's a light shining on it, like sunlight, you might see kind of sparkly glitter, but there's no clear image reflected in the water because it's not still. So the wind blowing is like our distractive thoughts, our discursive thoughts. When we have a lot of discursive thought, we're thinking about a lot of different things, our mental focus is jumping all over the place, then the mind is not stable, and it's difficult to focus on any one thing. Rather, we can easily think about a lot of different things, but to keep our attention focused on one thing is very difficult. So it's difficult then to get a very deep, just as when the surface of the water is stirred up, you can't have a very clear reflection of anything in the water. Similar, when our mind is all stirred up, it's difficult to get a very deep and complete understanding of anything that we're thinking about. Rather, we tend to have just a quick, discursive, kind of superficial impression of things, of many different things, but it's difficult to have a very deep experience of any one thought or idea or perception of the senses or anything, or even another person that we're with. So one thing we're trying to develop in terms of qualities of the mind when we're doing mindfulness meditation is stability. So instead of having a mind that's all stirred up, we want to make the mind very still, very stable. So that's like when there's no wind blowing, then the water, in a pond, or a lake, it naturally just sits very still, and the surface of the glass becomes very reflective, and then we can easily see the reflection of the clouds or the trees or the sky, many different things in the lake. So like that, when we practice mindfulness meditation or placement meditation, we learn to keep our attention focused on one object, and then gradually the energy of the mind kind of it becomes more still, more stable, right? So the discursive thought becomes less and less and less, and then we're able to have a more complete experience of whatever it is that we're focusing our mind on. So in this case, our breath, but we can focus the mind on so many different things. So then, so as we keep letting go of distraction and bringing our attention back to one object, then the discursive or the distracted energy of the mind becomes less and less and less, and the ability of the mind to remain fixed on one object, the stability aspect, becomes stronger and stronger and greater and greater. So then it becomes easier and easier to just keep our attention focused on one object of meditation. And eventually, with much practice over a long time, it can be such that we decide to turn our attention in meditation towards one object for 1 hour or more or longer. And then our attention just remains automatically fixed there without wavering whatsoever. So when the stability of the mind becomes very increased, then it's extremely easy to keep our attention focused on one object. Whereas now you probably find that it's very difficult. It requires a lot of effort to keep bringing our attention back to one object. And a common experience people have when they start practicing meditation is that they feel like their mind is more distracted. Like there's more clutter and more kind of chatter and discursive thought in the mind than before they were meditating, and more different kinds of experiences that they have in the mind than before they were meditating. Actually, that's probably not the case, because just sitting, watching, turning our attention towards one object, how is that going to cause you to have more thoughts? Rather, it's probably the case that you're just becoming more perceptive to the different kinds of mental experiences that you have that you just didn't notice before because they remain below the surface. Whereas when we sit still and just look at, try to direct our attention to one thing, we become more aware of all the different kind of things that are going on in the mind. So it seems like there's a lot more going on. Whereas actually it's probably not that there's more going on, it's probably just that we're more aware of the different subtle aspects of thoughts and emotions arising that we weren't aware of before. So it's natural to have that experience of that there's much more in the mind than I had before I was meditating. But actually it's probably just that we're more aware of what's going on in the mind, which is a good thing, right? Because that awareness, it leads to understanding, which leads to more wisdom and skill about how to deal with our thoughts and emotions, and leads us to have more control over our mind, so we can reduce disturbing thoughts and emotions and increase positive, constructive like thoughts and emotions. Okay, so one aspect is the stability, right? So we're using mindfulness and introspection or vigilance to try to keep our attention focused on one object, and by letting go of distracting perceptions and thoughts again and again and again, and bringing our attention back to the same object and trying to extend the duration of a continued stream of awareness that we have of one object. Gradually we increase the stability, so the mind becomes more and more accustomed to remaining focused on one object. Yeah, maybe a good analogy is like, training a dog to sit. When you buy a new dog, a puppy, or, I don't know, buy, maybe adopt, this is more a nicer word. Anyway, dogs come to us, pets come to us in many different ways. But if we adopt or make a young dog, for example, part of our family, part of our anyway, then young dogs, they naturally jump around, like to run all over the place, don't like to sit and stay in one place for very long at all. But if we put effort, we can train a dog to sit. So they follow different commands, but one of them is to sit still in one place, even though it's not their instinct to do so at all. It's not something they would do automatically. But if we give a reward, we use rewards and punishments and keep instructing them, then gradually over time we can train the dog so it'll sit for a very long time, even in circumstances where they ordinarily wouldn't want to sit still at all. Like when a new person comes to our house and they automatically want to jump up and run, but if they've been trained well, then they can just sit and stay still. So our mind is kind of like that. Like now, if we've never meditated before, our mind is kind of like an untrained puppy dog. It's naturally the attention is going all over the place and not staying still for very long. But by doing this kind of placement meditation, putting our attention on one object again and again and again, and we can even use the strategy of kind of reward and punishment. Like, not that we're going to beat our mind or something, but when we might try to sit and meditate for 10 minutes and it doesn't go well at all, and then we just recognize that rather than just saying, okay, then I can't meditate, forget about it, but just recognize that, that didn't go well, and then why didn't it? Was it because I'm tired, or because I'm very hungry, or because I just don't feel like it today? It seems kind of, maybe sometimes we're in a cynical kind of mood and everything seems kind of pointless, so also might feel that about meditation today, like what's the point of anything? So of course that's going to undermine our ability to meditate. So just recognize all the things that maybe impair one's ability to meditate well during one particular session. And be aware of trying to avoid those circumstances in the future. So make sure you're well rested, that you're well fed, but not too heavy. If you meditate after a heavy meal, it's not going to go well because you're going to be lethargic. And make sure you have some good reason for it, some inspiration, you have the attitude that this is a useful activity, this will benefit me somehow. By thinking about what do you want to achieve by learning how to meditate, what are the potential benefits that you can accrue to you by learning how to meditate well. Thereby, lift up your mind with sort of encouragement. Encourage yourself. And then when a meditation does go well, pat yourself on the back. So recognize, and again recognize, well, why did it go well this time? And try to reproduce those set of supportive conditions in the next session. Before I digress too much, so these two qualities of mind we can try to increase and develop through practicing placement meditation. One is stability, which I've been talking about, the ability of the mind to remain focused on one object and become still. Right? The other is clarity, mental clarity. So again, when our mind is distracted all over the place, it's like the surface of a lake, it can't reflect anything clearly. Whereas when the mind becomes still, then it can be, just like as the surface of water, when it becomes very still, it can clearly reflect any visual object that kind of is above it. Right? It can hold a reflection of the object. Similarly, when our mind is still, it can be very lucid and clear. So it's important to know about this because it's a common mistake that people make when they're meditating, especially in modern world where we have so much anxiety and stress. We feel, and it takes a toll on our immune system, on our nervous system. It's kind of overworked. We're hyperactive. Like our adrenal glands are hyperactive. We're just kind of overstimulated a lot. So for that reason, many people they turn to meditation just as a way to relax, right? Which is fine and does help you relax. But the danger of just using meditation to relax is that you can generate stability, mental stability, where you keep your attention focused, say on the breath or just on awareness of the present moment, awareness of your mind. And with stability, the mind becomes more relaxed, right? Because stability entails less excitement, right? So you reduce the excitement of the mind, becomes more stable, more focused. But there's a danger that if our objective is just to relax and just to have a peaceful state of mind, that we become very dull, right? Instead of our awareness of anything being very vivid and clear, that rather we make the mind very stable and relaxed, but then we don't have a vivid perception of anything. So in the case of like the breath, for instance, instead of being fully aware of, actually the more stable the mind becomes, the more fully aware of our breath, and all the sensations that go along with breathing, in this example, we should have. But there's a danger that if we're not aware of the importance of developing this aspect of clarity of the mind and vividness, that we generate stability, but we have dullness, right? So we don't become more and more clear, aware of the breath, but rather the mind kind of sinks inside, and we become less and less aware of the breath. But there's a peacefulness that comes with this sort of sinking away from sort of awareness of the object, and kind of withdrawing inside in a very clear way. So that can be very peaceful in a way, but but it carries a danger because it's like instead of developing the potential of the mind to fully experience something, it's like we're kind of sacrificing or giving up that ability of the mind in order just to sort of retract into peaceful state, which is separate from reality. So it's like there's a danger of just creating an imaginary world, in a sense, where we're not connected with reality anymore. We withdraw too far inside, and we're kind of, instead of using meditation to be more aware of and deal with problems, we're just using it to hide from, all the kind of difficulty in our life, which is not healthy, right? And actually, in terms of karma, if you believe in karma, law of cause and effect, it's kind of a negative karma. It's like kind of you create a karma to be like more like an animal state of mind, right? So it's not a good thing. So we want to generate stability on the one hand, but not let the mind sink into sort of unawareness, not being aware. Rather, we want to keep the mind lifted up and be fully aware of whatever object. So in the case of breathing meditation, like we were doing, when we get stability, instead of being less and less aware of all the aspects of breathing, the experience of breathing, we should be more and more aware, right? As we generate stability, we should also increase clarity, mental clarity and mental vividness, so that we're more and more fully aware of every aspect of breathing. Right? So there's a danger that as we become more and more aware, that becomes a distraction in and of itself. Right? So then we have to, so in meditation, sometimes you focus more on the stability, just keeping your attention focused on the object, or when you see the mind's becoming dull, then you focus more on the clarity and vividness aspect and try to have a fuller experience. And you kind of go back and forth between these two until the stability heightens the clarity, and the clarity also supports the stability. They can become mutually supportive. But the danger here is don't slip into mental laxity, it's called, or sinking, where you're just sort of withdrawing inside and losing touch with the actual kind of experience that you're having. You know, having a more duller experience, because that will cause the mind to become more dull, which is not. So then it's not. Your mind becomes less useful for anything you're trying to do with it. Right? So we want the mind to become more kind of light and more clear, more sort of lucid, right? So that we're more aware of everything. Yeah. So there's these two mental faculties we're trying to cultivate: mindfulness and vigilance. And then there's two qualities of mind that we're trying to cultivate, which is stability and clarity. So that's what I wanted to say more about mindfulness. And then just a couple words about generating a practice. It's good. I mean, just like physical exercise, you have to do it every day. If you just do it once a week, it's not going to be very beneficial. Right? You have to do regularly. Maybe once a day, if possible. Although there's some good studies coming out recently. I saw, sometimes I look at Bill Gates' kind of blog. He and his family are trying to meditate these days, it seems like. So one study, one researcher he was kind of learning from, they've done studies showing that even if you meditate for just 20 minutes, like 3 or 4 times a week, there's proven benefits. You know, you become more aware. It helps the positive affect of the mind. Reduces. You know, one big cause of depression is what's this term for? Basically, it's just a rumination. It's called rumination, where you just randomly think about many different things without any particular purpose. Like the mind is just wandering, you know, thinking about all different kinds of random things. Rumination especially involves thinking about worrying about the future. You know, like if you read about coronavirus now in the news and you worry about, oh no, what if someone from Wuhan comes to Bangalore and then I happen to go to the same restaurant and I get sick and then I'm going to be in the hospital and da-da-da-da-da. So rumination about especially negative scenarios that might happen in the future, which is very easy to do because in the media that we're mostly exposed to, the news media, it's mostly reporting on negative events because that's what we're hardwired to pay more attention to threats to our life than things that support us, because those are the things that we have to immediately worry about for self-preservation. What was I saying that? Oh, even if one of the benefits of meditation is it reduces rumination. Right? Because you learn to focus your mind on what you need to focus on in the present moment. So there's less, and you learn to become more aware of when your attention is just wandering and thinking about things that you don't really need to focus. Not only don't need to focus on in that moment, but that are a distraction from effectively using your attention and effectively operating in that moment. So meditation is proven to reduce some of the factors that lead to depression, reduce worrying, reduce anxiety, also increase sense of fulfillment and satisfaction with one's life. So to get these kind of benefits, though, you need to do at least 20 minutes of meditation, like 3 or 4 times a week. But of course, it's best if you can do it every day. So then the duration of the meditation session, even if you're going to try to start a regular meditation practice, meditate every day. The best time to meditate is when you're fully alert, when you're naturally alert, right? If you're very drowsy, you try to meditate, then you're just going to get more drowsy and probably go to sleep, right? So for some people that might be early in the morning, for some people might be late in the evening, for some people in the middle of the day. You have to see what works, with your schedule. Generally in the morning we're well rested. If we've gotten a good night's sleep, we wake up, wash our face, exercise, and then after that, you're very kind of alert. And the mind's not too stirred up with all the activities of the day, all the business of the day yet. It's generally in the evening, if you're more tired and your mind's all stirred up with everything, thoughts and memories of everything you've been doing that day, it's more difficult to focus the attention then. Although, if you can make time to do both, it's very good to meditate at the beginning of the day, also meditate at the end of the day. But at least, do a few times a week. And then the duration of the meditation session should be short at first, because when we're beginning to meditate, the objective is to have a high quality of attention for the whole duration of the meditation session, right? So if it often happens that when meditation session's not going well, say we decide we're going to meditate for 20 minutes, and in the first, let me look at the other scenario first, it's maybe because it's less complex. So say we decide at the outset, so at the outset you should decide how long you're going to meditate for. Say for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. 15, 20 minutes is a good kind of place to start. Say we're going to decide we're going to meditate for 20 minutes, but then as, minute 18, 19, it's good to keep a clock in front of you so you know kind of how long you've been meditating for. And you can just glance at it to see, from time to time, to see how long you've been sitting. Let's say minute 18, 19 is approaching and you feel really good, like it's going really well. You have good focus, you're able to fully watch the breath, you feel very peaceful. And then so you just decide to meditate for another 20 minutes without stopping, right? So then, because at the beginning it requires a lot of energy, mental energy to keep our mind focused, because the mind tends to wander off, so we have to keep trying to bring our attention back. So there's a danger that if the meditation session is going really well and we just keep extending it longer and longer and longer, we run out of energy, right? Our energy gets lower and lower and lower. It's more and more difficult to keep our mind focused. And then the mind wanders off more and more. And then we're sitting with, most of the time we're just sitting and being distracted. We're thinking, oh, because I decided to sit for 20 minutes, 20 more minutes, then I'm just going to sit here and meditate as best as I can, but the quality of our focus, the quality of our mental attention declines, and we just keep sitting there kind of insistently. So we don't want to do that, right? So it's better to keep the meditation session short, to just 20 minutes, and at the end, if it's going really well, just stop anyway, because then you'll feel like doing it again, right? Any activity when you're doing, if it ends well, then you look forward to doing it again, right? So, and if we get in the habit of sitting with a low quality of attention, then that becomes counterproductive. Then every time we sit, we don't really have the experience of having any high quality of attention, and we just sit there anyway. Then if we're just sitting with a distracted mind, it's not really, very fruitful. So it's better to keep the meditations short and stop at the time that you decided to stop at the outset. So then if it's going really well and you have more free time and you want to meditate again, take a 5-minute break, right? Just get up, walk around, do something else, maybe clean a little bit or have a drink or do something else for 5 or 10 minutes. Go outside, just look around, and then sit again for 20 minutes, right? Then start over at the beginning and do another 20-minute session. So actually the way to quickly build up to make progress in placement meditation is to do many short sessions, right? Do many, many short sessions is the way to quickly build up this sort of stability and clarity when we're doing placement meditation. Yeah, so I think that's all I wanted to say. So now if you have any questions about sort of this technique, doing placement meditation. Yes?
So, when I'm sitting and body is very stable, I find that this vigilant self is more easily able to function and catch the distraction. But when I'm doing activities, say which require movement and more physical involvement, often the mind has drifted away from the activity, but it's not as vigilantly catching itself. So is there another practice, or does this practice itself make the vigilant self stronger? Is there something else that we can practice to add to?
Yeah, well, there is another thing you can practice. It's actually described in text. Is just like when we're sitting to meditate, it's very intentional. We're very conscientiously deciding, okay, for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to do this, right? And I'm going to focus my attention like this. The object of my meditation is the breath, so I'm going to watch the breath, and when I find my mind is distracted, then I'm going to let go of those things and bring the attention back. So we can use that same technique in anything we're doing. Like say we're going to cook a meal, and we think it's going to take about 30 minutes. Then at the outset, we just add a little bit more intentionality, be a little bit more conscientious about, okay, now, the next 30 minutes I'm going to cook this, this, and this. To do that, I have to do this, this, and this. So when I see myself thinking about something else that's totally unrelated, in this context, that is a distraction, and I'll let go of that and just try to bring my attention back to You know, at this moment I'm cutting the onions, at this moment I'm heating the oil, at this moment I'm washing the rice. So you can bring that kind of intentionality into any activity. So it's it's basically because, you know, thinking about the future or thinking about the past or daydreaming, those are not in and of their own right, those are not distractions, right? Each of those things can be important at a certain time and a certain place and situation, right? And there's nothing wrong with doing those things. So what makes something a distraction is because we've delineated, you know, the parameters of how we want to use a particular period of time. Like, so in meditation, like, I want to watch the breath for the 10 minutes. So then thinking about the future or thinking about the past is a distraction in that context, right? So then in any context, it's important to delineate the parameters of how we want to use our attention at that time. Like if I'm talking with a friend, you know, say I'm in the middle of cooking a meal, but then, you know, a friend, you know, just shows up. They ring the doorbell and they really need to talk about something. So then the most important thing is not cooking a meal anymore. It's about paying attention to that friend. So then we put the cooking a meal aside and then, you know, give our attention to that friend. So then the context changes. And in that context, when we're talking to the friend, if we're thinking about, like, actually what we're going to do about the meal, it's actually, we're not giving our full attention to talking with that friend anymore. So that becomes a distraction, right? So, we just have to, decide, okay, in this context, how do I need to use my attention? What is it that I need to pay attention to, and what not? And then, reduce this, or use vigilance that way. Other questions?
Are we discouraging multitasking?
Are we discouraging multitasking? Kind of, but I don't know. I don't think, you know, multitasking is inherently bad in any situation because, you know, some tasks, like, you don't need to only do that thing all the time. You know, like if you put rice on to boil, you can do something else while the rice is boiling. You know, you don't have to sit and just pay attention to the rice boiling for 20 minutes. That's quite boring, right? So at that time you could chop the onions and heat the oil. But, you know, I think multitasking becomes a problem when, you know, it's reducing the quality of the things we're doing. Like every action that we engage in, whether it's talking to a friend or cooking or cleaning or, you know, planning out our day or, you know, I don't know, writing an email, each of them, they require a certain quality of attention to do that thing well, right? So when we see that we're trying to do, you know, 3 or 4 different things at the same time, and we end up not doing any of them well, then you can see it's a problem. At that time, multitasking has become a problem.
The objective of mindful meditation is concentrating on something, one point.
Yeah.
It's a question of multitasking.
Well, I don't think her question of multitasking is in regard to just meditating. It's just, I think her question, I mean, I was interpreting her question, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Multitasking in general, is that a problem? Not necessarily in the case of...
We are talking in the context of mindfulness.
Yeah, but we're trying to apply this...
What we are doing, isn't it?
Yes, but we're trying...
The question of multitasking, if you're supposed to be meditating on your breath.
Yeah, if you're meditating on your breath, you can't be doing other things at the same time. There, multitasking is kind of impossible. Right? But we're trying, but Sebastian, I think her question...
The mind is bad enough.
Yes.
Difficult enough.
Yes.
So where is the question of multitasking? This itself is...
That's what I'm trying to explain to you, if you listen. So I think the question of multitasking comes up because we're trying to look at how to use the same skills that we develop while we're doing mindfulness meditation, how to use those skills in other contexts, right? Like cooking or cleaning or, you know, exercising or whatever. So then there can be the question of, well, you know, to use the skills of mindfulness in the case of cooking, does that mean I can't do anything else? I can't multitask. I can't do other things than cooking while I'm cooking. So I'm saying, no, it's not necessarily the case. Every different activity, it requires a certain kind of degree of attention and, you know, a certain kind of attention. So not like with meditation, it requires 100% full attention while we're doing it. So you can't really do anything else. If you're checking your, you know, what messages, if you have messages from someone while you're meditating, then you've broken the continuity of awareness of the object of meditation. But if you're checking messages while you're cooking, then it's not necessarily interference to that activity. Because that activity requires sort of, it doesn't require continual attention, stream of attention. So I think the question applied in that way. Yes?
Thank you. Today the topic was on mindfulness and overcoming anger with loving kindness. Is it done? Because yesterday I just your class?
No, it's not done. No, yesterday we went through mindfulness, anger, and loving kindness quickly.
Okay.
And today we have from 11 till 5.
Okay.
So we're going through each of them slowly. So this is going to be it for mindfulness. Anger's coming next.
The question is, you mentioned about stability and mental clarity, right? And you told that when mind becomes still like water, you would get a proper mental clarity, and you would get into a reality. You get to know the reality. Can you just give a layman example in our daily life, where we are, implementing the stability, practicing stability of the mind, and where you can see the clarity, like cooking example you gave, right?
Okay.
So like that, any other example where I can see the stability also in that example, and also mental clarity.
Sure.
Where you mentioned about you get to know the reality. So what is that reality?
Yeah, sure. So if I stick with the example of cooking, like, if we,
Or any other example.
Can I use cooking, or should I make something? I've already started with cooking, so it's easy. And it's something we all do in daily life very much. So, in the case of cooking, I think the stability would be that, your attention just stays on the things that you have to do while you're cooking, instead of thinking about other things. You decide, okay, for the next half an hour or an hour, I'm going to cook this, and dish, and you can keep your attention it involves a little bit of contentment, Like our discontented mind always wants something new, something different. So in a way, a discontented mind always needs some variety, It's not content just to do something simple, right? So contentment involves appreciating simplicity, just simple things, and kind of cherishing the richness that comes about through just giving our attention to simple things. So to develop stability, which we've been talking about mostly in the case of doing mindful breath meditation, watching the breath. In the case of watching the breath, stability is when we decide to focus our attention on the breath for the next 20 minutes, and our attention can just stay there, without wavering to other things. Right? So if we develop that same kind of quality of attention, we use it in the case of cooking, it would be that we decide we're going to cook this dish over the next hour, and we can just quite contentedly pay attention to all the simple, different steps and tasks that are involved in cooking the dish, right? So then the clarity comes about. It's important to understand the clarity by contrasting it with the opposite, unclarity, dullness, right? So in meditation, then, we can have stability, but there's a danger of the mind becoming withdrawn, becoming dull. So instead of becoming more aware of the vibrance of the experience of breathing, we become less aware of it, because the mind is very still, and we're attracted to the peacefulness of that stillness, and we withdraw into the feeling of peacefulness rather than being fully engaged with the object of meditation. Right? So there's a kind of withdrawing from the object, right? Because we just want to kind of withdraw into this sort of safe, peaceful feeling, right? So if you take that same, whereas the opposite, clarity, is that we have stability, but we're more and more aware of every aspect, every minute detail of the experience of breathing, right? So the reality here is the object, the reality of the object. The object here is the breath, right? Watching our breath, the experience of breathing. So whereas if we withdraw into this feeling of peacefulness, we have less and less contact with that experience of breath, right? So I've heard other meditators speak about how, the breath seems more and more distant away, and we seem more and more kind of withdrawn in, although the mind is very still, but there's no clear experience of the object. So the opposite of that is where the mind is very still, but instead of withdrawing, we have a more and more heightened awareness of the experience of breathing. So it's like, instead of being withdrawn from it and the object is here and we're withdrawn here, it's like we merge more with the object. So there's less sense of duality. And it's like we become more fully the experience of breathing, and in that way we're completely aware of it in a way that we ordinarily aren't, right? We're fully aware of. So in that way we're connected with the reality of the experience of breathing, right? I've got you so far? No? Okay, but let me just...
What is that reality?
Yeah, what is that reality? It's just the reality of breathing. I mean, come on, there's nothing special about that. It's just the experience as it is. No? So often we don't experience things as they are because our attention is wandering off somewhere. We only half experience them. So fully experience. So then the same with cooking. Like you decide you're going to cook a meal for an hour, and then you keep your attention there. But you could imagine like it all just, you do it automatically because you know how to do it well. So it just goes automatically. You're not really, there's no vividness, there's no freshness, there's no newness to the experience. Because every moment we're experiencing ourselves and the world completely anew. I mean, every moment is a moment that has never been before and will never be again, right? But so there's so much new to experience in every moment, but oftentimes we don't recognize that. We'd rather just withdraw into some kind of something else, right? So the contact with reality is knowing everything that's happening in this moment as it happens, as it is.
It's not just emptiness, right?
No, it's not emptiness. No, that's something much more complicated. Yeah.
Okay, in context to meditation.
Yeah.
So, if I try to meditate in different places, different rooms, I don't have the same level of attention, or I don't attain the same level of satisfaction from the meditation.
Sure.
And it's not the distraction that is the reason. It might be with the place or energy level. So how do I ensure that the room in which I am meditating, it instills positivity in me, and I like when I meditate over here, it is not the same level of meditation when I meditate in my room.
Right. Yeah.
So how do I ensure that the meditation that the satisfaction from the meditation that I reap from the meditation in my room is up to the same level that I reach over here?
Well, you can't really. I mean,
ensure the positivity or in the room, or how to structure it some way, or anything that I should ensure that I reach the satisfaction over there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Basically, I mean, it's true that every different physical environment, different rooms, different places, different times of day, different weather, all that's going to have an effect on the quality of, the kind of experience that you have while we're meditating. So there's no way to, ensure that we can replicate the same kind of satisfaction that we get in every place we meditate, much less even in the same place with every session. Just because, physically we have different biorhythms, so we feel, excited sometimes, lethargic other times, very alert, sometimes very sleepy other times, very comfortable, and we can sit very still at one time, another time we just are fidgeting all the time, because the body has its own rhythms, and according to how we sleep, how we exercise, what we eat. And even if we keep all those things, the amount of sleep the same, the kind of exercise the same, what we eat the same, even if we can keep all those the same, which most of it we can't, still our body is going to change. It's, and so the way we physically feel is going to change. It just everything is changing, right? So there's no way to ensure that we have the same kind of experience all the time. So we have to expect that every time it's going to be a little different. And there's a big danger of having unrealistic expectations. That can be, a biggest obstacle, right? Is having unrealistic expectation, especially when we have really good, experiences in meditation. Then the next session we really are hoping that's going to happen again. Totally won't. That's almost guarantee it won't happen, because that hoping this experience is going to come wasn't there in that last session when we had a good experience. It was free from that. It's more likely a good experience is going to come when we're totally free of any expectations, right? That's a better probably condition for having a really good meditative experience. But that said, there are some important things we can do in whatever physical environment we're in. Like the first instruction actually in classical meditation instruction is to clean the room, to sweep the room, and make sure it's free of dust and free of clutter. Make sure everything's put away in its kind of place, and the room is neat and clean. It's said that as if you're going to, a special guest is going to be coming and you want the place to be prepared for the person. So yeah, the first instruction is usually to sweep the room, clean the room, and then have the place you meditate be attractive. Put out offerings like flowers and water. And the place you meditate, it should be, when you see that place, when you come to sit down on that place, you just naturally feel happy to be there. So it should be, have lighting the way you like it. Maybe light some incense so it smells nice. Put out some, if you practice some spiritual tradition like Buddhism or Hinduism, Christianity, whatever, or you have some spiritual teacher, put images of those things that inspire you in front of you. Not that you sit and look at those while you're meditating, but you see those and you remember their kind of inspiring guidance, and then that helps uplift the mind. So clean the room, put out offerings, things that inspire you. Have your meditation seat be comfortable, and keep it the same. And don't shift things around in the place where you're meditating. It should be so that you come and sit, and it's just kind of it's part of a routine. It looks the same, it feels the same. So if you always have different things on the table in front of you every time, then that's going to be a distraction, right? So that's why when you come to a place like this, of course there's other people around, you're in a place you've never been before, of course the mind's going to be more distracted. Like any new place we go, it takes a couple days just to feel. It's just like when you go to stay at a hotel, you don't sleep as well as at home because it's new. But if you stay there a long time, it becomes more and more and more comfortable and you sleep better and better. So meditation's like that. So yeah, that's kind of the basic things. Why don't we take a 5-minute break now? And just stand up, have a drink of water, go to the toilet if you need, move around a little bit.